Yo, allow me to take you back, way back, back to the early 2000s, back to the time of snap bracelets, AOL dial-up internet, and that one commercial that was all like, you wouldn't download a car, would you? And yeah, like, yes I would, in a heartbeat too. The early 2000s. It was a simpler time, surely, a time that a lot of people in their mid to late 20s like me
Damn. I'm sorry.
are very nostalgic for. And what screams early 2000s nostalgia? Like online flash games. I'm talking old ass Macromedia Shockwave, Microsoft Silverlight flash games. You know, the ones with the long loading screens? I remember it vividly. Lunchtime in grade school, instead of being in the cafeteria, kids would just be in the computer room playing classic flash games like Interactive Buddy and Fancy Pants Adventure, where you would just waste your free time away punching this gray blob over and over again, or trying to hurry and get as many collectibles as you can before it was time to go to your next class. Those were the days, man. And that's only if you count the classic flash games suitable for kids. What about the ultraviolet ones you'd see on newgrounds.com back in the day? Like the violent beat 'em ups like Dad and Me, or the bloody and, in hindsight, kinda cringy arena shooters like Ding Ding. And oh my Jesus Christ, how many years has it been since you heard someone mention goddamn Ding Ding? Do you guys remember Ding Ding? Like Ding Ding 4 and Ding Ding Arena? I'm getting old. I feel like I'm speaking an archaic language or something to you guys. All of these were great. True Goliaths of their time. But there is another category, I'd say, of early 2000 flash games that exists in a pantheon of its own. And that, my friends, are the Cartoon Network flash games. I can speak glowingly about these for hours because they made up a huge part of my childhood. I even hold one of them near and dear to my heart for sentimental reasons. And don't get me wrong, right? Nick and Disney had some bangers. I mean, Nick had the Cat Scratch game, that was cool, even though it was just watered down Worms Armageddon. And it had the Danny Phantom Freak for All game, and that slapped. What? Woo! And Disney had the Kim Possible Stitch in Time game, and the Lilo and Stitch Speed Chase game. Those super duper slapped. Until the nostalgia wears off a little bit, and you realize that the Stitch Speed Chase game only had like 5 experiments in the whole thing, and the funky Hawaiian music doesn't even loop correctly, like at all. But it had my boy Kix, and he was my favorite experiment. He was the best experiment. And yeah, I know, hot take, and yes, that's a hill that I'm willing to die on, but never mind that. These games were good for their time, but man, Cartoon Network had the real nostalgia bangers on there. Like Powerpuff Girls All Monsters Attack, which was a fighting game where you play as their giant robot dynamo and fought kaiju, the same ones that you see in the shows and the movies. I had such vivid memories of playing this in school. The only issue is that its name, Wildfire, is a reference to the 1969 Godzilla All Monsters Attack movie, which was terrible. I'm talking muy terrible. Arguably the worst of the Japanese Godzilla movies. At the very least, it's the worst of the OG Showa era. But I digress. The game was simple, but all of these games were simple. That's the appeal of it, really. Hell, Some games had no rhyme or reason to them at all, like the Ed and Eddy wrestling game, which I love, called Clash of the Idiots. You just pick a random wrestling move and hope that it works. There was no skill. It was completely up to chance if you won or lost. So you might be thinking, how is this fun? It sounds so boring and simple. Well, that simplicity is kind of the beauty of old era Cartoon Network Flash games. Because if there was two things that those games had, was simplicity and variety. And I'm talking loads of variety. You had wrestling games, you had snowmobile racing games, you had a whole 2D Mortal Kombat style fighting game starring the Teen Titans with multiple combos and special moves. You even got to play as both the Teen Titans and the villains. Whatever games you fancy now, there's a high possibility that you played some stripped down version of it on cartoonnetwork.com back in the early odds. Let's say you're one of those people that like turn-based strategy games like XCOM, or better yet, Fire Emblem. Cartoon Network even had a stripped down version of that with the Captain Planet Robot of Zarm game, where you would move the Planeteers across this isometric top-down map to specific areas based on their specific powers and attack distances. There was nothing Cartoon Network didn't have back in the day with their Flash games. It had puzzle games like Dexter's Laboratory, Clone the Doodle Doo, which just sounds silly to say out loud, where you just spent the whole time capturing chickens. And it used to be so infuriating when you would shoot a laser, but it comes out so slow, and a chicken would just sprint into the laser and you'll lose. But it doesn't stop there. It even had a DAW. Do you guys know what a DAW is? Your music maker friends know what a DAW is. A digital audio workstation, which you make beats and stuff on. While limited, you still got to make your own music based off of pre-recorded audio files. The game was called Funkbox, and it was from Classic 3000. You know, Classic 3000, the cartoon Andre 3000 did for a little while. You might know it. Funkbox was like FL Studio for kids. I mean, I know I've had FL Studio for about 9 years, and I can definitely attribute part of my interest in FL now was due to Funkbox playing a big role in my childhood. What's that you say, Amron? I don't like music, and all of this nerdy shit sounds boring. Well, what about sports? I'm a man's man, and I like sports games. Well, back in the day, if you're willing to wait the 3 hours for Macromedia Shockwave to load up, there was a little game called Toon Hoops. Sounds familiar? Well, you got to play as classic early 2000s cartoon characters like Dexter, Buttercup, Courage, Mandy, Number 4, and Eddy. And each one of them had an attribute they excelled at. Like Dexter was good at threes and Courage was good from the mid-range. I used to love this game. And can you believe the wave of nostalgia I got playing this game for the first time in over a decade? It was immeasurable. I'm just so happy to have the opportunity to play these games again. I even got a chance to play my favorite Flash game ever. My favorite one, regardless of site, regardless of age rating, my favorite Flash game. Billy and Mandy's Harem Scarum, a Halloween-themed side-scroller beat-em-up, kind of in a similar way to Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time in the Simpsons arcade game. You know, a Double Dragons kind of thing. You keep going right, beat up the baddies, and fight the boss. I loved it till as old as time. Whenever I even got 10 minutes of free time to myself on the computer as a kid, this was the game that I rushed to go and play. And even playing it now, for the little bit that I have for this video, I instinctively played the game the same way that I did back as a kid. I remember telling myself back then, always keep the scythe, always keep the scythe. It's the best weapon. Always keep the scythe. And no matter what, I kept the scythe. And I remembered that. It was such a weird feeling that's hard to explain and put into words. But the moment I turned the game back on, it was my first thought. Oh, little kid me always kept the scythe, so I have to always keep the scythe now. Good times. So my friends, thanks for staying with me through all of this, because I need to say something. A lot of time has passed since these games were on the forefront of online gaming. I lived quite a bit of life since then. I've graduated from elementary school, high school, and college since these games were out. I've been through 3 different jobs since I played these games. I loved and lost. I've gained family and lost family. A lot of life have transpired since then. And before we wrap up, there's a game that I hold near and dear to my heart that holds a lot of sentimental value to me. And this game is Samurai Jack's Desert Quest. There's nothing complex about it. It's another beat 'em up like Harem Scarum, where you press the shift key over and over again, getting that stupid goddamn sticky keys alert that no one has gotten in 20 years just to fight Aku and slice up some robots. So why is this sentimental to me? Because the absolute last time I played this game, I was in my mom's house on an old gray Dell computer with a phone jack and AOL dial-up internet. And we got a phone call saying, hurry to the hospital. My niece was about to be born. I'll never forget just dropping everything, stopping the game midway, hearing the news, and rushing there as soon as I could. It was the last thing I did before she was born. The wave of emotion that I felt getting to play this game that was involved with such an integral moment of my life, it gives me chills. It gives me chills now just thinking about it. So I'm sorry to say, my friends, you can't play these games on the cartoonnetwork.com site anymore. They're gone. Flash is dead. It's archaic now. Technology improved. It moved on to better things. But thanks to bluemaxima and his extensive web game preservation project called Flashpoint, we've been able to preserve these old Flash games, these moments in history that meant so much to us as kids and preteens. At the time of this recording, Flashpoint Infinity 11, which is the one that I use, has 177,469 games on it and counting. And for this, bluemaxima, Ben Lattimore, I am eternally thankful to you. And I am thankful for all of those who contribute to the Flashpoint project. So yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Flash games were awesome. Simple, but awesome. And Cartoon Network Flash games were super awesome. You might even say the awesomest. What a time to be alive, right? What a time to be a kid looking to waste a day away on the internet. If only we knew what we had. Good times. I still don't know why y'all watch my videos. I really don't. All my videos are trash. Nonetheless, if you're one of the 5 people who make it this far into the video, thank you for watching. I love y'all. Keep supporting, unless you don't want to. Goodbye.